I'm delighted to be here today to celebrate Virgin Startup having funded 4,000 founders and having provided them with the support to start and scale businesses in the UK. I'm really excited to be talking to Carley Read, the founder of Yearn and our 4,000th founder. Hi, Carley, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you, Andy. It's great to talk to you.
Fab, really excited to get into this. First of all, would you mind just telling us a bit about Yearn? What's it all about?
Okay, so Yearn is a peer-to-peer marketplace to rent baby and kids items. So you can either make money if you have items you don't need right now, or rent from local people in your community. We've started with baby and kids, but we have big plans to grow into other verticals over the next year or so.
Fab, sounds really exciting and quite an innovative business model as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But just out of interest, if you kind of take us back, when did you first know that you wanted to start a business?
So I had the spark of the idea for the business back in March 2019. I was talking with a friend between roles, deciding whether I was going to stay in California. I was living in the US.
Yeah.
And at that time, decided it was the right time after having this particular idea and throwing myself into it.
Fab. And what were the first steps you took when you had that kind of spark of an idea, as you say? What were the first steps you took to kind of bring that idea to life?
So I sat and mapped out all of the different areas that I thought I needed to think about and focus on. My background was program management, so planning and risk planning is kind of in my blood. So that's where I started.
Fab. And I guess anyone who's starting for a business or starting a business for the first time, there's like an element of risk in that, and you're kind of taking a leap of faith. What were your kind of concerns when you were sat there back in California with this idea? Kind of what were your kind of worries at that point?
The big one really was fundraising. I knew that I had enough space on credit cards and I could probably stretch myself for a while. And I'd been lucky with the job that I had before. I was almost like a consultant. So I'd worked in product and tech and marketing. So a lot of the things that founders really need to think about, those different areas of the businesses, I'd had experience on the strategy side and then also making those plans come to life. But as far as raising funds to run the business, I knew that was something that was going to be a struggle, especially as I didn't really have the network of people that I could tap into that maybe had the funds to kind of give to me, or at that stage, once you had started growing enough that you wanted to raise more funds, obviously having a network of people that that is comfortable for them isn't something that was going to be easy for me. So that was a real risk, not the initial kind of first 6 or 8 months or even a year, I guess, but the raising money after that initial kind of bootstrapping stage was over.
Yeah, and where you take the business from there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And what out of interest kind of led you to Virgin Startup and kind of particularly using a startup loan as part of that funding journey?
So I actually spoke to 2 people in the same week that mentioned Virgin Startup. And so the reason I was talking to you guys in the first place was recommendation. So Crowdcube I'd contacted and they thought that I would be a good candidate for the Impact Collective that you guys run, and recommended that I speak to you. And I also had a mentor hour with the founder of Accelerator. And I think, Andy, you'd actually contacted her the day before asking if she had any female founders that she'd spoken to recently. And it just felt like I don't know, the stars aligned. So I then contacted you. We had a call, had a really good gut reaction. I think you helped me with the Step Up program as well, setting that up. And so it felt like something that happened really naturally. I didn't even know that pre-revenue loans existed at that stage. I'd fallen through the gaps for COVID relief, being kind of moving back to the UK after all of those grants started. And at some point I'd just given up thinking that raising funds was going to be an option for me. And so, yes, the introduction was kind of 2-pronged for 2 different reasons. And I've taken you guys up on everything I think you have to offer.
Which is genuinely great, I think, on a number of levels. I think, we exist to help founders in the UK start and scale early stage businesses. We're set up as a not-for-profit to provide that support, that access to funding, and the fact that you've been able to use it and actually it's helped move the business on is genuinely great. And I'm delighted, certainly kind of looking back, that the stars did align, that our paths did cross, and we've been able to work together, which is great. Can I ask, one of the things that really interests me, and I kind of touched on it very briefly at the beginning, is kind of like the business model and the fact that you're trying to make kind of reusing just as aspirational and just as accessible as buying. And obviously within that, there's some really strong ideas around sustainability and purpose. Why was starting a business that was kind of sustainable and impactful important to you?
So it started from the concept of I was packing up my home, and why did another friend need to buy everything? And so I could have lent it to them. Actually, it would have helped me with storage costs. That would have helped with the environment. And it kind of tumbled very quickly over a couple of hours as the initial idea. And so sustainability, it didn't start from a point of I want to build a sustainable brand. I had a problem that I was starting to think about and wanted to resolve. But by nature, our business is sustainable. As you say, we're getting people to reuse, the less things are being produced, packaged, shipped. We're connecting people in the community. So when we think of waste, sometimes that's just items that go into landfill, but actually it's also items that just get left in homes, in garages and attics. And so we're trying to get people to reuse that. So we are very much about sustainability by the nature of the business that we are. But I'm also hoping that as the brand grows, we can raise awareness in other areas. Our blog is about sustainable parenting, and I think sometimes it's about education. So we know that we can use certain types of fabrics and swap certain products out, but I think it's a lot more broad. And if you made it easy for people to make better choices, like renting rather than buying everything new for their child because they only need it for a few months, then I think more people will make those sustainable switches. So we're hoping to also promote other brands and more awareness around things that are less obvious when it comes to sustainability.
Fab. It's genuinely amazing. And you said something at the start of that, Carly, where you said, actually, I didn't start out to launch a sustainable business or a sustainable brand. I was starting out to solve a problem. And I think, all of the best entrepreneurs are doing just that. And I think, one of the biggest kind of problems or challenges certainly that we face at the moment on a global level is actually how we kind of combine profit with purpose, and how we have businesses that can really be a force for good and contribute positively to their kind of communities and the planet and the people they engage with. And I really like the way that you're thinking about it quite broadly across the different aspects of the business. And you talk about uplifting other brands that share similar values and the importance of education. I know one of the things behind Yearn is that you're looking to be a climate positive business. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what exactly that means and what it entails?
Yeah, so as you say, there's a great opportunity when you start a business from scratch to be able to set the foundations that you want to move forward with. So one of those for us is doing more than just helping other people be more sustainable. What are we doing as a business? So one of those things is partnering with Ecology. They allow you to offset your carbon footprint. At the moment, I'm the only person on payroll. We're actually getting some people join us through the government Kickstart scheme and hoping to recruit people over the rest of the year. But the idea is that we support projects with Ecology that offsets your carbon from a work and personal point of view. And then the partners that we're taking on board, we'd obviously be looking at their supply chain and the types of products and work methods that they have to ensure that our message carries all the way through. It's not just about we've offering a platform for other people to make easier choices. Are we carrying that through? And it also extends for us out into the charity work that we're trying to do. So we offer one-click donation at checkout for people to donate some of the money they make to our charity partners. So Great Ormond Street is one, and Baby Basics is the baby network in the UK. And then there's another one called Child Rescue Coalition that is fighting child pornography and sex trafficking. So we're trying to, or we are starting from something at the beginning that it's then easier to continue and scale, which some people said worry about those things later. I just think you don't get round to them and it's harder to implement. So we're starting at the beginning.
Amazing. I love hearing you talk about the way you're thinking about and the way that you're approaching the business with Yearn, because I think exactly to that point, seeding those principles and embedding those kind of principles and those ways of doing the business at the beginning, as you start to grow and scale, they grow and scale with you. Mm-hmm. And they have such a kind of positively compounding benefit over time. And I think the other thing, to my mind is, starting a business is hard, and you wear lots of different hats. There are lots of different decisions to make. And often it can seem like doing the sustainable thing is the harder thing. But I think increasingly with kind of customer attitudes changing and the types of brands people want to engage with, I think it's those businesses like you and like Jörn that are engaging with some of these issues now will be the ones that not only kind of survive, but crucially thrive in the future, because they are doing the right thing. So I think you should be commended hugely for it, Carley.
Let's hope so.
No, I genuinely, I really, really do. And can I ask, you've obviously got kind of big plans for Jörn, and you talked about kind of growing the team over the course of the year. What are your ambitions for the business?
So if we're going sky high, we want to be the rental version of Amazon, and doing that in a way that's actually giving back, as I said, to the communities and planet. So we really think that the sharing economy is obviously growing way before Jörn was even an idea, but in the UK, that's maybe a little bit further behind than the US.
Yeah.
So hoping to really help bring that to life here in the UK and then continue to grow. We designed the business and the technology so that it's really easy to scale. So as we add on new verticals, so hobbies and adventure is the next one that we're looking in. So we buy lots of stuff. I bought everything to go camping and then decided I wasn't really a camping person. So what do I do with that stuff? I don't know, lots of different hobbies. And so how do we kind of connect people to share those things or to rent them from bigger brands that we don't do, I guess, as much in the UK as well. So opening up sports and adventures that maybe not everybody can afford and tap into at the moment, but a rental model you could, and it really changes that for different audiences. So yeah, we've designed it so we can easily add on verticals or add on markets, which enables us to scale and help more people and grow more quickly.
Amazing. I love the way that you're kind of like future-proofing the business, and actually you're thinking about how you kind of take what you're doing with kind of baby and child to begin with, and then actually kind of expand that out again, kind of growing the business, growing the impact. You mentioned that you've kind of built the tech, and I guess that's one of the the really interesting things about Jörn is fundamentally it is a tech business, and there's a lot of kind of complexity and infrastructure that sits behind what you're doing to make it really kind of easy for the user and for the customer. How have you found, just out of interest, being kind of a woman leading a tech business? Because there's often a lot of talk about women being underrepresented in entrepreneurship, but particularly so in tech. Have you found any particular challenges there?
So far the work has been relatively kind of internal. I recruited a team in Argentina. We launched and COVID hit, and then I had to move back to the UK and start again. And we built and launched more recently, which allows us this, as I said, this platform to continue to grow. But as far as being a woman in tech, I've actually been in technology for a really long time, and I, yes, have heard kind of some horror stories, and I imagine as I start to interact with people kind of outside of the small team that I've been working with over the last 18 months, that some of those things will arise, and especially kind of raising funds. But it's probably just, it's something that I think I've just adjusted to. And when I was younger, it probably made me a little bit more bullish, which I don't care to be so much anymore. And so I guess I'll just look to work with people that are more aligned and open to that. But I also think that I'm probably benefiting from the fact that women have been underrepresented, and there's a lot of effort going on at the moment to address that imbalance. So I'm hoping that mine will be a positive story out of that, rather than, I know some other people have had some kind of bumpier rides, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think I think that is absolutely spot on. I think you're doing great stuff. You are a super credible founder. And I think what you've achieved today is kind of testament to that already. And I think, the world is changing. We launched our 50-50 pledge back in 2019, which is our commitment to fund an equal number of men and women that were starting businesses. I think currently in the UK, only 1 in 5 businesses has a female founder. But I think that's something that you're starting to see more broadly across the landscape now. So I'm sure that actually you will have every success, and that you won't encounter some of the challenges on the funding journey that you think you might, and some of the horror stories from previous years might suggest.
Yeah.
You mentioned that obviously you've had to kind of rethink and repivot things because you were essentially launching this business a little over 12 months ago, and then kind of a global health pandemic hit. What are your kind of reflections on the last year, and is there kind of anything that you think you've learned over that time, or anything you wish you knew a year ago, perhaps, that you know now?
Probably lots of things. On a personal note, I think something that's jumped out to me more recently is I probably could have been kinder to myself along the way. I felt that maybe I'd lost a year. There was this whole kind of sentiment. I was in California, in San Francisco, actually, where everyone expects this hockey stick. You launch and you scale very quickly. And I got wrapped up in that idea. And so to come back and people say to you, how's it going? And you're a year further on and actually you're kind of starting again, because we were going to launch a furniture in the US. That was hard, and so I kept pushing, and I think the grit element of me was pushing harder than my confidence that everything would be successful, even though I still believe it would be, and I did along the line. I think I was just kind of pushing too hard, and so I've got a better balance, and things seem to be kind of working out better. So I do think there's that treating yourself kindly along the way, or just being, you can't do everything. And I definitely lost that for a while. I'd probably made me a little ill.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting to hear you say that, and I guess kind of reflect back on that, because I think a lot of founders, they are working super hard, and particularly early on, a lot of it can be kind of work that you do in isolation. And there's a lot of people that are supportive and want to see you do well, but they're not as intimately involved with the business as you are. They don't know how much hard work goes into it, how much effort, how much you've put on the line for it. And I think one of the things that I always remember, and I kind of read the stat a few years ago, was that 80% of people at some point in their life think they have a good idea to start a business, or they believe they can be their own boss, or they have a desire to be their own boss. The reality is that less than 1% of people ever start. And to not only have an idea, but actually to bring it to life in the way that you have, that already makes you part of a very, very small and exclusive club of those that have actually had an idea and had the confidence and the belief and the desire to really, really see it through. And genuinely, I think that is remarkable. I think I'm always incredibly humbled by all of the founders that we work with, because they are out there, they're doing it for real, they're bringing stuff to life, they're creating things that genuinely wouldn't exist without them. And I think particularly in your case, where the business is having such a kind of a positive impact as well, that's great for everybody. Can I just ask a question around well-being as well? Because you mentioned obviously you've been working very hard, and there was a point where potentially that was making you ill. I think on reflection, do you have any kind of thoughts around that, or how you might kind of face into things like that differently moving forward?
I think it's I think there's an element of, outside of the planning for the work that you're doing, is also planning for the milestones that you feel equate to success. So obviously when you're starting, everything is just about building and delivering and then growth. But I think if along the lines I'd gone back and said, okay, I did launch something, that was a tick, because even though you hit these milestones, it just means that you're creating the next bigger milestone. It doesn't actually feel like you've achieved something quite often. So I felt like the first 18 months, even though it was, finding a tech partner, or, confirming the brand and deciding on the name and building the platform and launching, a lot of those things never felt like it was a positive. It then just tipped me into the next stage of work. And so I think actually taking stock at each of those milestones and seeing it as something as a success, rather than just like, okay, tick, let's get on to the next one, I think would really change how I felt about the business. At times I almost was embarrassed when people were asking, how's it going? Like, as I said, do you have paid customers? And what I should have been saying was, oh yeah, I've built a tech platform, and it's a marketplace. And and when they say, what are you doing all day? Questioning, I'm like, I'm writing terms and conditions and designing a brand, and from every aspect of up and down, short term, long term. And so I think actually putting some of those achievements as more of a personal rather than a deliverable would change the way I felt about it, and maybe gave me a little bit more happiness in those moments.
I think that's a great reflection. I think great advice for anyone, really. I guess the importance of goal setting, not, as you say, just to tick it off to the list and on to the next thing, but actually to recognize those moments, to remember how much hard work went into them, to celebrate the achievements, and I guess to enjoy the journey as well. Like, the vast majority of people that start businesses, yes, they start them to solve a problem that they perhaps saw, but I'm sure most people want to enjoy it and have fun along the way. And I think that is kind of very much a part of kind of an entrepreneur's nature. So I think that's a really great reflection. As we said at the top, we've now funded 4,000 founders. Would you have any advice to, say, the next 4,000? So those people that might be kind of where you were back in 2019 when you had this kind of spark of an idea, any advice that you would want to share with them?
I think find something that you're passionate about, and also find people and bring them around you that are passionate about helping you get there. So part of it is, yes, you might have an idea, but are you really going to get yourself up motivated every single day when people maybe don't agree with you, don't believe in the idea? Do you have the passion to keep pushing yourself forward, whether that's working or to the next milestone, and having that belief? And then as far as having the people around you, you need to recognize what you're good at and what you need help in. As a founder, you want to maybe have all the hats, and sometimes you do need to, as the founder, also because of cost. But there is an element, I outsourced a few things that I was very conscious of that wasn't necessarily my skill set. But it's also a personal note. So we were just talking about kind of health, and it can be lonely. And yes, it's fun and you work for yourself, but at times it can really be a struggle. And I think if you've got kind of friends and family that are close, obviously you have friends and family around you all the time, but feel close to the business as well, that you don't want to give the whole backstory of your business to be able to just say, this thing fell through today, or I spoke to somebody. And so having a few people that are close that really understand what you're going through, and sometimes that's other founders, I've connected with founders. I think that's the big thing. So yeah, passion that you have, and then passion that other people have to help you get there, because it's a lot of work, even though it's very exciting. You need those cheerleaders to help you get there too, I think.
You absolutely do. Again, I think great advice. And so you've kind of mentioned that you've had people around you. Have you kind of had a mentor in a more formal capacity, or anyone that you kind of gone to, or do you have kind of a number of people that you would consider to be kind of mentors?
I've never actually had a mentor, and I realized recently that I probably didn't really have a manager. My type of role meant I was kind of project manager or a consultant and dropped into places. But more recently, I have been looking. It was actually a mentor hour with Jackie, which was the introduction to you. But there are a couple of people that I've been tapping into that are great in their field, and so can turn to for advice.
Yeah, amazing. So I think mentoring is one of the things that we provide to founders at Virgin Startup, and I think often people that come to us looking for business advice, they're looking for funding to help get their business up and running. But actually, when we talk to them, maybe kind of 12, 18 months down the line, it's quite often the mentoring that is the bit that they ultimately found most valuable or most helpful, kind of particularly in those times when they're doing a million and one different things, they're wearing lots of different hats. Just to have that kind of supportive person, that kind of objective voice that you could go to, that perhaps has kind of some experience that they can call on, a network of people that they can make introductions to. And I would always encourage founders when they're starting and scaling businesses to try and find either a mentor or potentially a number of people that can act as mentors, who you can call on as well. It's one of the questions I'd be really keen to ask. Obviously, we as Virgin Startup have been supporting founders in the UK for the past 7 years now, but we ourselves were founded by Richard Branson, and he's been a kind of huge supporter of us as an organisation as we've been going through our own startup journey. And I guess if you had Richard as a mentor, if you had the chance to ask him a question, what would your question be to Richard?
How would you, or what's the right time, I guess, to invest in your growth? I think that's one of the things that I've been struggling with recently. Do we kind of focus on one area and grow slowly with it, or do you tip the money you have and hope that grows quickly and helps you further along the line? So I think kind of managing growth is going to be something that's really difficult. I would love some advice on.
Fab. Well, Richard.
Hi, Carly. Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Hello there. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Thank you very much. Yeah, Carly, I just had to come in just to say congratulations. Yeah, I just wanted to come on to wish you all the very, very best with it, and we'll be fascinated to watch you in the years to come. Can I ask you a couple of questions, if possible? Have you got children yourself? Is that how it came about, or?
No, and that's something that surprises a lot of people, actually, because the initial idea was furniture, but I knew that we wanted to, because of the community aspect, and grow the brands. We were elevating, I guess, to these moments. And my idea was setting up a home should be exciting, but actually sometimes it's too stressful, expensive. And then, moving to new cities or starting a family. And so Yearn was meant to be there for those kind of big moments. And so when I moved back to the UK because of COVID, we decided not to focus on furniture first because I didn't think we were ready. Although John Lewis has since announced that they're launching a furniture rental business, and maybe we are. So then decided that baby and kids was the best way to start.
Great. And have you started, or where are you now?
Yeah, so we the platform was live and ready, I guess, a month or two ago, and
Right.
we have started. I actually started buying inventory myself to kind of get the ball rolling and showing how it all works. But we're about to start paid marketing and push now, so all of this is kind of great timing.
And coming up with the name. It's very, very difficult to find names that aren't registered already. Presumably, is why you got the apostrophe in it, or I mean, how did you end up with that name?
So I spent quite a lot of time thinking about the kind of circular economy component of the business and wanting to bring the two sides of the marketplace together. And also people confused about who was the renter, the person that owned it or the person that wanted the item. So I came up with earners, people that make money, and yearners are people that want items, and you bring them together, which is the Y''E of Yearn.
Amazing. We were just talking before, Richard, around kind of how hard it is to be a founder, and Carley was talking around kind of having kind of supporters around her and kind of fellow founders to support her on that journey. And we just started talking about mentors. And I know you've, I guess, had kind of mentors yourself over the years. What are your kind of thoughts on how important that is when you're starting a business?
I think if you're lucky enough to be able to tap into mentors, that can be really helpful. I mean, they can tell you where they made mistakes and try to help you avoid making mistakes. I'm somebody who's always asking other people for advice. Still always asking other people for advice. And then sometimes you can take it on board. Sometimes you can check it out. I mean, for every one good idea a mentor has, there'll be 4 or 5 that'll be just worth dismissing. In the end, the buck stops with you. I'm always a great believer in listening, writing down different thoughts, testing them out, and then making a decision. Well, look, I just wish you all the very, very best with it, and look forward to buying some products for my grandkids, or I'm sure that they get spoiled by my wife, and that they've got far too many toys, and I'm sure I could grab a lot off you, and to our mutual benefit.
We know what you do, Richard. You'll have to get them listed on the platform, and other people can enjoy them as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Richard Branson's toys.
Anyway, well, look, I'll leave you two to it, but and Andy, just thanks so much for all you're doing with Virgin Startup. It's very, very exciting.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you.
Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.
Cheers.